Huh, looks like the new Walking Dead trailer just dropped. Let's see if there's anything I can do a video on. Oh yes, that'll do quite nicely. So with San Diego Comic-Con over and the new Walking Dead trailer out, I just knew I had to do a video about the trailer's end scene, which shows, spoilers in 3, 2, 1, Rick's an old man. There are plenty of theories floating around from this being just a flash forward, a full-on time skip, or even Rick waking up from his coma, which, no. Just no. Get this out of my face. This video is going to be what I think makes the most sense given how the show works and based on the events of the comics. So, spoilers from the comics and up to Season 7 of the TV show. I make all kinds of other theories on games and TV shows, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, let's set up the basic information on the conspiracy corkboard first, and I'll fill in the details. So there's Old Man Rick in the trailer, the scene mimicking the first episode of the show, the time skip in the comics after the All Out War story arc, the Kane in the trailer similar to the Kane in the comics, and the first episode of Season 8 being the 100th episode. This might seem like a lot to take in, but trust me, it'll all make sense. Let's start with the comic book comparisons. In the comics, after the war with the Saviors, Rick is left with a broken leg that presumably didn't heal properly, as even many years later in the New Beginning story arc, Rick still needs a cane to walk. This is more likely than not the same cane that we see in the trailer. This implies that the survivors will win the war and Rick will make it out alive. Some people dislike this decision because it removes any suspense from the show. If we know that Rick makes it out, then we have no reason to worry about him, which we never really did in the first place. Rick is the main character of the show, and they wouldn't kill him off, especially this late in the game. Remember in Season 7, Episode 12, where they did a fake out where they made the audience think that Rick got eaten by a bunch of walkers, but then immediately paid it off? I remember Twitter blowing up with people thinking Rick actually died. Not to brag, but I knew he was alive because without Rick Grimes, there is no all-out war. And that's not to say that they will never kill off Rick, because the show has to end sometime, and Robert Kirkman himself has even said that Rick won't make it to the end of the comics, so his time on the show has to end sometime, but it's not anytime soon. This brings us to the time skip. After All Out War, many years pass in the comic book world between issues. We know this because Maggie's baby in the comics is more of a toddler now, so he's probably around 2 or 3 years old, meaning it's been quite a while since they've defeated Negan. Now, will the show implement a time skip this season? Well, judging by the trailer, that seems unlikely. They have a lot of material to work with from the comics, and it'd be foolish of them to try and cram the entirety of All Out War into just the first half of the season. They did a 2-month time skip in Season 6 between episodes 9 and 10, but I doubt they would do All Out War in only the first half of the season and have a full time skip between the first and second half. A change that significant would have to be between seasons, not in the middle of one. It seems like the first half of the season will involve the group taking out the Savior's outpost, much like they did in the second half of Season 6. They are yet to film the second half of Season 8, so I'm not going to jump the gun here and say what they're going to do for the second half, because we simply just don't know yet. A time skip in the middle of the season would not be a bright idea, and I don't expect them to do it, at least this season. So if there likely won't be a time skip, then why is Rick old in the trailer? Well, that all comes down to Season 8 Episode 1 being the 100th episode of the TV show. Whenever a show hits its 100 episode milestone, most of the time, there's an episode that pays homage to the first episode, or to the series as a whole. It also becomes the threshold for officially becoming a syndicated TV show, but that's beside the point. Since the Old Man Rick scene in the trailer is obviously made to look like the scene of Rick first waking up from the coma in Episode 1, this will likely be a flash forward shown in 801 that will perhaps set the tone for the war this season, while also referencing 101. However, this is all just educated conjecture and none of this is actually confirmed. We'll have to wait and see what the show brings and how they handle all of this. With that said, I'm gonna explain the scene's placement and how I think the first half of the season will go down. So I think it's pretty obvious that this Old Man Rick scene will be in the 100th episode, simply because of how it was shot to look like Episode 1. What I think they will do is start off the first episode of the season with this scene, and have Rick reminisce about all of his post-apocalyptic adventures and all of the friends he's lost along the way. I don't know if they would do actual flashbacks or just have Rick narrate something over a flash forward footage, but I think it would be a good way to pay homage. If they don't do that, then perhaps they'll have Rick thinking about the war and vaguely talking about what happened without giving anything away. Just have him say something like, "The war was brutal, but we won. We lost many along the way, but we won, Coral. Coral!" And then transition into Rick giving a speech or something in present day. I think either option could work, or even a combination of some kind. From there, I think they'll stay pretty true to the comics. For those who don't know, comic spoilers by the way, in the All Out War story arc, the survivors send a herd of walkers to the sanctuary to buy themselves some time, because let's face it, Negan's army would utterly destroy them unprepared. As we see in the trailer, Carol and Tara are sitting above a herd of walkers that are probably heading to the sanctuary. Perhaps in doing this, Father Gabriel gets captured, which explains the first scene in the trailer. I personally want to think that these are two different scenes just with clever editing, like they did in the Season 6 trailer. If you remember, they made it look and sound like Rick was threatening Morgan, leading us to believe that perhaps there would be some tension between them, but none of that was actually prevalent. Plus, any dark room looks the same, so this could easily be two different scenes, but then again I could be overthinking it. Negan isn't in the trailer very much, which leads me to believe that he's trapped in his compound because of the herd of walkers. While Negan and his main forces are distracted, the survivors will be preparing for war by fortifying themselves and taking out different savior outposts to deplete Negan's backup forces and destroy any connections to the outside world. Now, onto a few other things I noticed that aren't necessarily in any order, just minor details that might play a bigger role this season. Dwight will still be the man on the inside, helping the survivors to get the upper hand. We see in the trailer that Rick seems to be captured by the garbage people, which we know are a bunch of traitors. Perhaps they'll use Rick as leverage to make a better deal with Negan, or maybe to make a trade with the survivors. It seems that King Ezekiel and Jerry are in a bit of a pickle, leading people to believe that perhaps they will kill off Jerry, but I think that's unlikely because he's already become a fan favorite character and he's only had like 10 lines. Plus the show doesn't have much comic relief anymore since characters like Glenn and Abraham are dead, and Eugene is temporarily on Negan's side. Some people have already pointed this out, but it seems that these armbands are here to differentiate the place a person is from. White being for Alexandria, red for the Kingdom, and green for the Hilltop. I don't know if this was done by the Saviors or by the groups themselves to differentiate each other in battle, but it was worth pointing out. I don't know how important that will be, but it could possibly play a larger role in the actual warfare, as Negan in the comics is known for his trickery. It seems like Morgan will have yet another redemption arc this season, especially considering what happened last season. I really want to know why he's fighting Jesus, but I also want to see some awesome fight choreography. On a final note, it seems like we're finally getting that Walking Dead car chase that I've been asking for the past 3 seasons. With all that said, I'd like to know what you think down in the comments to keep the discussion going, because there's always more than one way to look at things. My name is Matt, aka Chunky Monkey Games, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.